When we use glue, it always spreads or ends up in places it shouldn't, and we have to remove it. Today I'm going to try to make a compilation of ways to remove different types of sticky residues. With techniques I've practiced over the years with pretty good results, I'm not saying 100%, but more or less good. One important thing, it's always better not to let too much time pass before trying to remove the glue from where we don't want it. Clean it right away, or at least as soon as the glue dries, and it'll save you a lot of headaches. Let's start with the famous cyanoacrylate, La Gotita, or superglue, as it's called in other places. This very common glue always ends up on your fingers and sticks really hard. You shouldn't try to pull it off forcefully like that, because you'll end up tearing off a piece of skin. In these cases, we can remove it pretty easily with hot water. We add, well, not too hot, add hot water, put your fingers in there, and this way it comes off really, really easily. As you can see, another very effective way is with acetone. The nail polish remover has to say it contains acetone like this one, otherwise it won't work. You also apply it to the sticky surfaces, and if you're going to use acetone, you need to test it first. If it doesn't affect the surface of the material where the sticky stuff is, test it in a hidden corner. We do the test because there are paints and bad ones, and also materials that can be damaged by this solvent, all right? Let's go to the second one, the labels on the jars. Well, some labels are pretty easy to remove just by soaking them. Some come off perfectly, but there are some adhesives, like the one on this Nutella jar, that are pretty stubborn. When that's the case, what you do is let it soak for a few hours, and right after taking it out of the water, you put it on the surface. Sticky baking soda. And with a cloth soaked in cooking oil, you start to rub. See how quickly it comes off there. Once we've removed all the sticky stuff, we wash it with detergent and the soaking is done. It's always good to do it with a splash of white vinegar that really helps the labels come off much easier. Third tip, the plastic from the glue gun, or silicone gun, as some people call it. Well, the one I hate, the messy one that leaves strings and blobs of plastic everywhere. Luckily, this one is super easy to clean with a little brush, like an old toothbrush. We use a little isopropyl alcohol, and in seconds you'll see how easily it comes off. It's fantastic. It comes off really quickly. You can also do it with pharmacy alcohol, but it won't give you as good results. It works too, but it takes a little longer to soften. It also comes off easily with the same tip, using the same isopropyl alcohol from clothing. Look here. I put it on a cloth, and you have to be patient. And it comes off perfectly, and nothing is left. Absolutely nothing is left. Let's go to the room. The contact segment, oxyrin, right? I'm going to give you 3 tips for this type of glue. If the contact segment was applied just a little while ago, it's dry, but not too long ago, we can remove it. This way we coat a pencil or a stick well with the same contact segment and let it dry for a few minutes. Then we roll it like this, turning it, and it will stick to the pencil. The glue that's on the material doesn't come off. This also comes off quite easily when you're gluing melamine or one of those wood coverings. Can this method be used? If the contact surface is dry, like for example a floor where the carpet has been removed, We can do it with the same thinner that comes for contact surfaces. If you don't have it, you can use gasoline and steel wool, always using gloves, a mask, and good ventilation in those cases so you don't get knocked out. Don't get it on your clothes. We remove it by soaking a cloth with gasoline, letting it sit for a while, and then using the little brush. We remove all the remaining glue residue. The fifth glue is Poxipol. This is the worst if it gets on your clothes, especially when it comes to removing this glue. Once it's dry, the best thing to do is to heat it up so it softens, as long as the surface allows it. Of course, in this case, here there's a blob on a piece of metal, so I'm going to work on it. With the heat gun, and then with a spatula or a knife, we remove it. As you can see, it comes off very, very easily. If the surface were made of another material, you could heat it with a hairdryer, which is less powerful than the heat gun. So you heat it up a little, then we apply a cloth soaked in mineral spirits to soften it, and we remove it little by little. It's quite a lot of work. It's a glue that always gives me trouble, even on clothes. It's also usually pretty hard to get off your fingers, but mineral spirits loosen it up quite a bit. Once we're done removing it with mineral spirits, you have to wash with neutral soap. But well, it's not easy. Now let's go to the sixth one. Let's talk about lime. And what about mortar cement? When a wall's being repaired or the builder does some work on the floor, well, it's always a mess. To remove those leftover bits of mortar, the most practical thing is first to scrape with a brush to get rid of the thick part, and then to remove the white part. You use a toothbrush. We apply muriatic acid, watch the reaction it causes. It doesn't react immediately. It starts to bubble, the muriatic acid. Is it agua fuerte, fuman, as they call it in other places? I use the pH corrector for pools, which is exactly that. All right, once the stain is removed, sprinkle the area with baking soda to neutralize the acid and wash it with plenty of water. You can also try using white vinegar instead of muriatic acid with pretty good results. Then you have to neutralize the vinegar as well, since it's also an acid, but much weaker. There are granite floors that can be damaged by acids, so be careful. First, you should try to remove it mechanically with a brush or steel wool and test first to see if the floor doesn't get damaged by the acid before making any mistakes. No, well, let's go with the seventh one. With asphalt, more than once it must have happened to you that they were working on a street. You drove by and, well, the whole edge of your car ended up covered in that black gunk, that asphalt or tar, as it's called in other places. To remove these residues is pretty easy. You do it with a cloth soaked in kerosene and wipe it off. It's quite simple to remove. It seems like a hassle, but it's really not that bad. Let's move on to another tip, the eighth one, sticky plastics. A few years ago, the Chinese started covering devices with a layer that looked like some kind of foam rubber. Did they cover all the plastics with this? With this type of foam rubber, which at the time was something that felt nice to the touch, but that material, over time, turns into a disgusting sticky rubber that gets all gross and sticky. To remove it, we prepare a paste made with baking soda, cooking oil, and we can add a few drops of dish soap. We spread that paste on and gently rub with a cloth, and it comes off very easily. Once it's clean, we wash it with a little water and dish soap, or with a damp cloth with dish soap. We remove all the remaining paste, and it ends up perfectly clean without any of that sticky residue. All right, let's move on to another one. The ninth, Fastix or silicone can be either Fastix in a tube or silicone, the kind that comes in those cartridges. When it gets on your clothes, the best thing to do once it happens is not to touch it. Let it dry without trying to remove it until it's completely dry. Once it's dry, we remove the excess with a spatula or a knife, and then we put a cloth with water, gasoline, or kerosene over what's left. Leave that for about 10 minutes and then start removing it. What doesn't come off easily takes a bit of work, but it will come off. When the silicone is old and stuck to the ceramic or wall, it's best to soften it first with a heat gun and then remove it mechanically with a very sharp spatula. Afterwards, use a damp cloth with turpentine to remove all the residue. Let's go to the 10th one. White glue or vinyl glue, the one kids get all over themselves at school. In this case, I just did a test here on a piece of fabric. But it's the same procedure we can use to remove it from any type of material, wood, or wherever it might be. Even carpenter's glue can be removed with this technique. The first thing you do is reactivate the white glue with hot water, meaning you soak it well with hot water. You'll see that it's going to change color from transparent back to white again. This will make it soft, and we can scrape off the thick part, then use a little isopropyl alcohol in a small brush. We remove any remaining residue. It's pretty easy, and you do the same with carpenter's glue. You wet it with hot water, peel it off, and then clean it. You clean off all the residue until it's ready to be glued again. The last one, which is a bonus because there were 10, but well, I added one more. Soften the brushes, which is also a pretty important tip. If you're one of those people who leave the brush without cleaning it, this tip is extraordinary. Here I have a brush that I didn't clean last time, and it's pretty hard. The method to clean it is easier than you think. First, we're going to heat water until it boils and start wetting the brush, turning it so the paint softens. We're going to dip it like this. As you can see here, you can press it and you'll notice it softens quickly. Once this happens, we put it in a small jar with paint thinner for a while, and after a few minutes, we have the brush clean again. To completely remove the old paint, I usually use an old comb. As you can see, I comb it out and it's ready to use again. There are more types of glue, obviously, right? Sometimes in the boxes and instructions, there's a section that talks about how to remove it. Well, read it, don't throw that away. Normally we throw away the box and the paper and then we run into problems. I hope you liked it. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel, clicking the bell to get notifications when I upload new content. Please share it on your social networks. And if you're a big fan, you can become a premium member by supporting the channel and clicking the join button. Thank you so much for watching the video, and see you next time, God willing.